Second Chronicles, Second Dibri Ha-Yamim, Chapter 1. And Shalomah son of David strengthened himself over his reign. And Yahuwah his Elohim was with him, and made him exceedingly great. And Shalomah spoke to all Israel, to the commanders of the thousands and of the hundreds, to the judges, and to every leader in all Israel, the heads of the fathers' houses. And Shalomah and all the assembly with him went to the high place that was at Gibeon, for Elohim's tent of meeting was there, which Moshe the servant of Yahuwah had made in the wilderness. However, David had brought up the ark of Elohim from Kiriath Yearim to the place David had prepared for it, for he had pitched a tent for it in Jerusalem. And the bronze altar that Bezalel son of Uri son of Hur had made, he put before the dwelling place of Yahuwah. And Shalomah and the assembly sought it. And Shalomah went up there to the bronze altar before Yahuwah, which was at the tent of meeting, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings on it. That night Elohim appeared to Shalomah and said to him, Ask, what should I give you? And Shalomah said to Elohim, You have shown great kindness to David my father, and have made me sovereign in his place. Now, Yahuwah Elohim, let your promise to David my father stand fast, for you have set me up to reign over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Now give me wisdom and knowledge, so that I go out and come in before this people. For who is able to rightly rule this great people of yours? And Elohim said to Shalomah, Because this was in your heart, and you have not asked riches or wealth or esteem, or the life of your enemies, nor have you asked long life, but have asked wisdom and knowledge for yourself, so as to rightly rule my people, over whom I have set you up to reign. Wisdom and knowledge are given to you, and riches and wealth and esteem I also give you, such as none of the sovereigns have had who have been before you, nor any after you have. And Shalomah went to Jerusalem from the high place that was at Gibeon, from before the tent of meeting, and reigned over Israel. And Shalomah gathered chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he stationed in the chariot cities, and with the sovereign in Jerusalem. And the sovereign made silver and gold to be as stones in Jerusalem, and he made cedars to be as plenty as the sycamores which are in the low country. And Shalomah had horses imported from Mizraim and from Kir. The sovereign's merchants bought them in Kir at a price. And they came up and brought from Mizraim a chariot for 600 pieces of silver, and a horse for 150. And so for all the sovereigns of the Hittites and the sovereigns of Aram, they brought them out by their hand. 2 Chronicles chapter 2. And Shalomah gave word to build a house for the name of Yahuwah, and a house for his reign. Then Shalomah enrolled 70,000 men to bear burdens, 80,000 hewn stone in the mountains, and 3,600 to oversee them. And Shalomah sent to Huram, sovereign of Tizor, saying, As you did for my father David, and sent him cedars to build himself a house to dwell in, see, I am building a house for the name of Yahuwah my Elohim, to set it apart to him, to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual showbread, and for the burnt offerings morning and evening, on the Sabbaths, and on the new moons, and on the appointed times of Yahuwah our Elohim. This is for Israel forever. And the house which I build is great for our Elohim, is greater than all mighty ones. But who is able to build him a house, since the heavens and the heavens of the heavens are unable to contain him? Who am I then that I should build him a house, except to offer before him? And now send me at once a man who knows to work in gold and in silver and in bronze and in iron and in purple and crimson and blue, and knowing to engrave with the skilled men who are with me in Yehuda and Jerusalem, whom David my father has prepared. And send me cedar, cypress, and algum logs from Lebanon, for I know that your servants know to cut timber in Lebanon. And see, my servants are with your servants, even to prepare plenty of timber for me. For the house that I am building is great and marvelous. And see, I have given servants to you, the hewers who cut timber, 20,000 cors of ground wheat, and 20,000 cors of barley, and 20,000 baths of wine, and 20,000 baths of oil. Then Huram the servant of Tizar answered in writing, which he sent to Shalimah, because Yahuwah loves his people. He has made you sovereign over them. And Huram said, Blessed be Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, who made the heavens and earth, for he has given sovereign David a wise son, knowing, wisdom, and understanding, to build a house for Yahuwah, and a house for his reign. And now I have sent a skilled man having understanding, Huram Abi, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, and his father was a man of Tizar, who knows to work in gold and in silver, in bronze and iron and stone, and in wood, purple and blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson, and to make any engraving, and to accomplish any plan that is given to him, with your skilled men and with the skilled men of my master David your father. And now the wheat and the barley, the oil and the wine, which my master has spoken of, let him send to his servants. And let us cut wood from Lebanon, as much as you need, and bring it to you in Ras by sea to Yapho, and you take it up to Jerusalem. And Shalimah numbered all the men, the strangers who were in the land of Israel, according to the census in which David his father had numbered them, and they were found to be 153,600. And he made 70,000 of them to bear burdens, and 80,000 hewers of stone in the mountain, and 3,600 overseers to make the people work. Second Chronicles chapter 3. And Shalimah began to build the house of Yahuwah at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where he appeared to his father David, at the place that David had prepared on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build on the 2nd day of the 2nd month in the 4th year of his reign. And these are the foundations which Shalimah laid for building the house of Elohim. The length by cubits according to the former measure were 60 cubits, and the width 20 cubits. And the porch that was in front was 20 cubits long according to the breadth of the house, and the height was 120. And he overlaid the inside with clean gold. And the great house he paneled with cypress, which he overlaid with fine gold, and he carved palm trees and chain work on it. And he covered the house with precious stones for comeliness. And the gold was gold from Parium. And he overlaid the house, the beams, the doorposts, and its walls and its doors with gold, and carved cherubim on the walls. And he made the house of the most set apart. Its length was according to the width of the house, 20 cubits, and its width 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, 600 talents. And the weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold. And he overlaid the upper rooms with gold. In the most set-apart house he made 2 cherubim of sculptured work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubim, their total length was 20 cubits. One wing was 5 cubits, touching the wall of the room, and the other wing was 5 cubits, touching the wing of the other cherub. And the wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, touching the wall of the room. And the other wing also was 5 cubits, touching the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubim spread out 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and they faced inward. And he made the veil of blue and purple and crimson and fine linen, and worked cherubim on it. And at the front of the house he made 2 columns 35 cubits high, and the capital that was on the top of each of them was 5 cubits. And he made wreaths of chain work as in the speaking place, and put them on top of the columns. And he made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the wreaths of chain work. And he set up the columns before the hekel, one on the right and the other on the left, and called the name of the one on the right Jachin, and the name of the one on the left Boaz. 2 Chronicles chapter 4. And he made an altar of bronze, 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide and 10 cubits high. And he made the sea of cast metal, 10 cubits from one rim to the other, round all about, and its height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits measured around it, and figures like oxen were under it, all around it, 10 to a cubit, all the way around the sea. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing north, and 3 facing west, and 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. And the sea was set upon them, and all their back parts were inward. And it was a handbreadth thick, and its rim was shaped like the rim of a cup, like a lily blossom. It held 3,000 baths. And he made 10 basins, and put 5 on the right side and 5 on the left to wash in them. In them they rinsed off what pertains to the burnt offering. But the sea was for the priest to wash in. And he made 10 lampstands of gold according to their ruling, and set them in the hekel, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. And he made 10 tables, and placed them in the hekel, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. And he made 100 bowls of gold. And he made the courtyard of the priests, and the great court, and doors for the court. And he overlaid these doors with bronze, and he placed the sea on the right side eastward over against the south. And Huram made the pots and the shovels and the bowls. So Huram completed doing the work that he was to do for sovereign Shalimah, for the house of Elohim. The 2 columns and the bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the 2 columns, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals which were on top of the columns, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on the columns. And he made stands and the basins on the stands, 1 sea and 12 oxen under it, and the pots and the shovels and the forks, and all their vessels Huram his master craftsman made of polished bronze for sovereign Shalimah, for the house of Yahuwah. On the plain of Yarden the sovereign had them cast in clay molds between Sukkot and Tirsardatha. And Shalimah made so large a number of all these vessels that the weight of the bronze was not searched out. And Shalimah had all the furnishings made for the house of Elohim, and the altar of gold, and the tables on which was the shew bread, and the lampstands with their lamps of refined gold to burn according to right ruling in front of the speaking place, and the blossoms and the lamps and the snuffers of gold, of perfect gold, and the snuffers and the bowls and the ladles and the fire holders of refined gold, and the entrance to the house, its inner doors to the most set apart place, and the doors of the hekel of the house were of gold. 2 Chronicles chapter 5. And all the work that Shalimah had done for the house of Yahuwah was completed. And Shalimah brought in the set-apart items of his father Dawid, the silver and the gold and all the utensils. And he put them in the treasuries of the house of Elohim. And Shalimah assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief fathers of the children of Israel, in Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah from the city of David, which is to Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled to the sovereign at the festival which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. And they brought up the ark, the tent of meeting, and all the set-apart utensils that were in the tent. The Levite priests brought them up. And sovereign Shalimah and all the congregation of Israel who were assembled to him before the ark were slaughtering so many sheep and cattle that could not be counted or numbered. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah to its place into the speaking place of the house, to the most set-apart place under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubim covered over the ark and its poles. And the poles were so long that the ends of the poles of the ark were seen from the set-apart place in front of the speaking place. But they were not seen from outside, and they are there to this day. There was naught in the ark but the 2 tablets which Moshe put there at Horeb, when Yahuwah made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Mizraim. And it came to be, when the priests came out of the most set-apart place, for all the priests who were present had set themselves apart, there was none to watch by division. And the Levite singers, all those of Asaph, and Heman, and Jeduthun, with their sons and their brothers, stood at the east end of the altar, dressed in white linen, having cymbals and harps and lyres, and with them 120 priests, sounding with trumpets. Then it came to be, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound, to be heard in praising and thanking Yahuwah. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets, and with cymbals, and with instruments of song, and giving praise to Yahuwah, for he is good, for his kindness is everlasting, that the house of Yahuwah, was filled with a cloud, and the priests were unable to stand and perform the service because of the cloud, for the esteem of Yahuwah filled the house of Elohim. 2 Chronicles chapter 6. Then Shalimah said, Yahuwah has said he would dwell in the dark cloud. But I have built you an exalted house, and a place for you to dwell in forever. And the sovereign turned around and blessed all the assembly of Israel, while all the assembly of Israel stood. And he said, Blessed be Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, who has filled with his hands what he spoke with his mouth to my father David, saying, From the day that I brought my people out of the land of Mizraim, I have chosen no city from any tribe of Israel in which to build a house for my name to be there, nor did I choose any man to be a leader over my people Israel. But I have chosen Jerusalem for my name to be there, and I have chosen David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart of my father David to build a house for the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. But Yahuwah said to my father David, Because it was in your heart to build a house for my name, you did well in that it was in your heart. But you do not build a house for your son who comes forth from your loins. He does build a house for my name. Now Yahuwah has established his word which he spoke, and I have been raised up instead of my father David, and sit on the throne of Israel, as Yahuwah promised. And I have built the house for the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. And there I have placed the ark, in which is the covenant of Yahuwah, which he made with the children of Israel. And he stood before the altar of Yahuwah in front of all the assembly of Israel, and spread out his hands. For Shalimah had made a bronze platform 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad, and 3 cubits high, and had put it in the midst of the court. And he stood on it, and knelt down on his knees before all the assembly of Israel, and spread out his hands toward the heavens, and said, Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, there is no Elohim in the heavens or on earth like you, guarding the covenant and kindness with your servants who walk before you with all their heart, who has guarded what you promised your servant David my father. Indeed, you have both spoken with your mouth and have filled it with your hand, as it is this day. And now, Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, guard what you promised your servant David my father, saying, there is not to cease a man of yours before me sitting on the throne of Israel. Only if your sons guard their way to walk in my Torah as you have walked before me. And now, O Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, let your word come true which you have spoken to your servant David. For is it true? Elohim dwells with men on the earth. See, the heavens and the heavens of the heavens are unable to contain you. How much less this house which I have built? Yet shall you turn to the prayer of your servant and his supplication, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, to listen to the cry and to the prayer which your servant is praying before you. For your eyes to be open toward this house day and night, toward the place you have said to put your name there, to listen to the prayer which your servant prays toward this place. And shall you give heed to the supplications of your servant and of your people Israel, when they pray toward this place, and hear from your dwelling place in the heavens, and shall hear and forgive? If anyone sins against his neighbor, and he has lifted up an oath on him to cause him to swear, and comes and swears before your altar in this house, then hear in the heavens and act and rightly rule your servants, repaying the wrong by bringing his way on his own head, and declare right the righteous by giving him according to his righteousness. And if your people Israel are smitten before an enemy because they have sinned against you, and they shall turn back and confess your name, and pray and make supplication before you in this house, then hear in the heavens and forgive the sin of your people Israel, and bring them back to the land which you gave to them and their fathers. When the heavens are shut up and there is no rain because they have sinned against you, and they shall pray toward this place and confess your name, and turn from their sin because you afflict them, then hear in the heavens and forgive the sin of your servants, your people Israel. For you teach them the good way in which they should walk, and shall send rain on your land which you have given to your people as an inheritance. When there is scarcity of food in the land, when there is pestilence or blight or mildew, locusts or grasshoppers, when their enemies distress them in the land of their cities, any plague or any sickness, whatever prayer, whatever supplication is made by anyone or by all your people Israel, when each one knows his own plague and his own grief, and spreads out his hands to this house, then hear from the heavens your dwelling place and forgive. And give to everyone according to all his ways whose heart you know, for you alone know the hearts of the sons of men, so that they fear you, to walk in your ways as long as they live in the land which you gave to our fathers. Also concerning a foreigner who is not of your people Israel, but who comes from a far land, for the sake of your great name and your strong hand and your outstretched arm, when they come and pray in this house. Then hear from the heavens your dwelling place, and do according to all which the foreigner calls to you for, so that all the people of the earth know your name and fear you, as do your people Israel, and to know that this house which I have built is called by your name. When your people go out to battle against their enemies in the way that you send them, and they shall pray to you toward this city which you have chosen, and toward the house which I have built for your name, then shall you hear from the heavens their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become enraged with them and give them to the enemy, and they take them captive to a land far or near, and they shall turn back unto their heart in the land where they have been taken captive, and shall turn and make supplication to you in the land of their captivity, saying, we have sinned, we have acted crookedly, and have done wrong. And when they return to you with all their heart and with all their being in the land of their captivity, where they have taken them captive, and they shall pray toward their land which you gave to their fathers, and the city which you have chosen, and toward the house which I have built for your name, then shall you hear from the heavens, your dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive your people who have sinned against you. Now, my Elohim, I pray, let your eyes be open, and let your ears be attentive to the prayer of this place. And now arise, O Yahuwah Elohim, to your resting place, you and the ark of your strength. Let your priests, O Yahuwah Elohim, be robed with deliverance, and let your kind ones rejoice in goodness. O Yahuwah Elohim, do not turn away the face of your anointed. Remember the kind acts of your servant David. Second Chronicles chapter 7. And when Shalomah had ended praying, fire came down from the heavens and consumed the burnt offering and the slaughterings. And the esteem of Yahuwah filled the house. And the priests were unable to enter the house of Yahuwah, because the esteem of Yahuwah had filled the house of Yahuwah. And all the children of Israel saw how the fire came down, and the esteem of Yahuwah on the house. And they bowed their faces to the ground on the pavement, and did obedience to, and gave thanks to Yahuwah, saying, for he is good, for his kindness is everlasting. And the sovereign and all the people were making offerings before Yahuwah. And sovereign Shalomah made an offering of 22,000 bulls and 120,000 sheep. Thus the sovereign and all the people dedicated the house of Elohim. And the priests were standing over their duties, and the Levites with instruments of the song to Yahuwah, which sovereign David had made to give thanks to Yahuwah, saying, for his kindness is everlasting. Whenever David praised by their hand, and the priests were blowing trumpets before them, and all Israel was standing. And Shalomah set apart the middle of the courtyard that was in front of the house of Yahuwah, for there he made burnt offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, because the bronze altar which Shalomah had made was not able to contain the burnt offerings, and the grain offerings, and the fat. And Shalomah at that time observed the festival 7 days, and all Israel with him, a very great assembly from the entrance of Hamath to the water of Mizraim. And on the 8th day they held an assembly, for they performed the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the festival 7 days. And on the 23rd day of the 7th month he sent the people away to their tents, rejoicing and glad of heart for the goodness that Yahuwah had done for David and for Shalomah, and for his people Israel. Thus Shalomah finished the house of Yahuwah, and the sovereign's house, and all that came into the heart of Shalomah to do in the house of Yahuwah and in his own house he prosperously executed. And Yahuwah appeared to Shalomar by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer, and have chosen this place for myself as a house of slaughtering. If I shut up the heavens and there is no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, and my people upon whom my name is called shall humble themselves, and pray and seek my face, and turn from their evil ways, then I shall hear from the heavens and forgive their sin and heal their land. Now my eyes are open, and my ears attentive to the prayer of this place. And now I have chosen and set this house apart for my name to be there forever. And my eyes and my heart shall always be there. And you, if you walk before me as your father David walked, and do according to all that I have commanded you, and if you guard my laws and my right rulings, then I shall establish the throne of your reign as I covenanted with David your father, saying, There is not to cease a man of yours as ruler in Israel. But if you turn away and forsake my laws and my commands which I have set before you, and shall go and serve other mighty ones, and bow yourself to them, then I shall pluck them from my land which I have given them, and this house which I have set apart for my name I shall cast out of my sight, and make it to be a proverb and a mockery among all peoples. And this house which has been exalted, everyone who passes by it shall be astonished and say, Why has Yahuwah done thus to this land and this house? Then they shall say, Because they forsook Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, who brought them out of the land of Mizraim, and embraced other mighty ones, and bowed themselves to them, and served them. Therefore he has brought all this evil on them. Second Chronicles chapter 8. And it came to be at the end of 20 years that Shalomar had built the house of Yahuwah and his own house. As to the cities which Huram had given to Shalomar, Shalomar had built them, and he settled the children of Israel. And Shalomar went to Hamath Tizobah and seized it. And he built Tadmor in the wilderness, and all the storage cities which he built in Hamath. And he built Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon, cities of defense with walls, gates, and bars. Also Baalath and all the storage cities that Shalomar had, and all the chariot cities and the cities of the cavalry, and all that Shalomar desired to build in Jerusalem, and in Lebanon, and in all the land of his rule. All the people who were left of the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who were not of Israel, their descendants who were left in the land after them, whom the children of Israel did not destroy. From these Shalomar raised compulsory labor, as it is to this day. And Shalomar did not make slaves of the children of Israel for his work, but they were men of battle, and chiefs of his officers, and commanders of his chariots and his cavalry. And these were the chiefs of the officials of sovereign Shalomar, 250, who ruled over the people. And Shalomar brought the daughter of Pharaoh up from the city of David to the house he had built for her. For he said, My wife does not dwell in the house of David, sovereign of Israel, for the place where the ark of Yahuwah has come is set apart. Then Shalomar offered burnt offerings to Yahuwah on the altar of Yahuwah, which he had built before the porch, even as the duty of every day required, offering according to the command of Moshe for the Sabbaths and for the new moons and for the appointed times 3 times a year, the festival of unleavened bread and the festival of weeks and the festival of booths. And according to the ruling of David his father, he appointed the divisions of the priests for their service, the Levites for their duties, to praise and serve before the priests as the duty of each day required. And the keepers for their divisions at each gate. For so was the command of David the man of Elohim. And they did not turn aside from the command of the sovereign to the priests and Levites concerning any matter concerning the treasuries. And all the work of Shallumah was prepared from the day of the foundation of the house of Yahuwah until it was completed. And the house of Yahuwah was perfected. Then Shallumah went to Etzion-Gilbah and Elath on the sea coast in the land of Edom. And Hiram sent him ships by the hand of his servants and servants who knew the sea. And they went with the servants of Shallumah to Ophir, and took 450 talents of gold from there, and brought it to sovereign Shallumah. Second Chronicles chapter 9. And the sovereigness of Sheba heard of the report of Shallumah, and came to Jerusalem to try Shallumah with hard questions, with a very great company, and camels bearing spices, and much gold and precious stones. And she came to Shallumah, and she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. And Shallumah answered all her questions, and there was no matter hidden for Shallumah which he did not make known to her. And the sovereignness of Sheba saw the wisdom of Shallumah, and the house that he had built, and the food on his table, and the seating of his servants, and the service of his waiters in their attire, and his cupbearers in their attire, and his burnt offerings that he offered up in the house of Yahuwah, and there was no more spirit in her. Then she said to the sovereign, True was the word I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. But I did not believe their words until I came and saw with my own eyes. And see, I have not been told the half of the greatness of your wisdom. You exceed the report which I heard. Blessed are your men, and blessed are these your servants, who stand continually before you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be Yahuwah, your Elohim, who delighted in you, to put you on his throne, to be sovereign for Yahuwah, your Elohim, because your Elohim has loved Israel to establish them forever. Therefore he made you sovereign over them to do right ruling and righteousness. And she gave the sovereign 120 talents of gold, and very many spices and precious stones. And there has not been any spices such as those the sovereignness of Sheba gave to sovereign Shallumah. And also the servants of Huram and the servants of Shallumah, who brought gold from Ophir, brought algum wood and precious stones. And the sovereign made stairs of the algum wood for the house of Yahuwah, and for the sovereign's house, also lyres and harps for singers. And there was never seen the like of them before in the land of Yehudah. And sovereign Shallumah gave to the sovereigness of Sheba all she desired, whatever she asked, besides that which she had brought to the sovereign. And she turned and went to her own land, she and her servants. And the weight of gold that came to Shallumah yearly was 666 talents of gold, besides that which the merchants and traders brought. And all the sovereigns of Arabia and governors of the land were bringing gold and silver to Shallumah. And sovereign Shallumah made 200 large shields of beaten gold. 600 pieces of beaten gold went into each shield, and 300 shields of beaten gold. 300 pieces of gold went into each shield. And the sovereign put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. And the sovereign made a great throne of ivory, and overlaid it with clean gold, and 6 steps led to the throne, with a footstool of gold which was fastened to the throne. And there were armrests on either side of the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the armrest. and 12 lions were standing there, one on each side of the 6 steps. The like of it was not in any reign. And all the drinking vessels of sovereign Shalimar were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of refined gold. Silver was reckoned of little value in the days of Shalimar. For the sovereign's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Huram. Once in 3 years the ships of Tarshish came bringing gold and silver, ivory, apes, and baboons. And sovereign Shalimar became greater than all the sovereigns of the earth in riches and wisdom. And all the sovereigns of the earth sought the presence of Shalimar to hear his wisdom, which Elohim had put in his heart. And each man brought his present, objects of silver and objects of gold, and garments and armor and spices, horses and mules, the matter of a year by year. And Shalimar had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he stationed in the chariot cities and with the sovereign at Jerusalem. And he ruled over all the sovereigns, from the river to the land of the Philistines, as far as the border of Mizraim. And the sovereign made silver in Jerusalem as the stones, and he made cedar trees as plenty as the sycamores which are in the low country. And they were bringing horses to Shalimar from Mizraim and from all lands. And the rest of the acts of Shalimar, first and last, are they not written in the book of Nathan the prophet, and in the prophecy of Ahiah the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo the seer concerning Jeroboam son of Nebat? And Shalimar reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. So Shalimar slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David his father. And Rehoboam his son reigned in his place. Second Chronicles chapter 10. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone to Shechem to set up to reign. And it came to be, when Jeroboam son of Nebat heard it, he was in Mizraim, where he had fled from the presence of Shalimar the sovereign, that Jeroboam returned from Mizraim. So they sent for him and called him, and Jeroboam and all Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke hard, and now lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us, then we shall serve you. And he said to them, Come back to me after 3 days. And the people went. Then sovereign Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father Shalimar, while he still lived, saying, What do you advise me to answer these people? And they spoke to him, saying, If you are good to these people and shall please them and speak good words to them, they shall be your servants all the days. But he ignored the advice the elders gave him, and consulted the young men who had grown up with him, who stood before him. And he said to them, What advice do you give? How should we answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, Lighten the yoke which your father put on us? And the young men who had grown up with him spoke to him, saying, Say this to the people who have spoken to you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter on us. Say this to them, My little finger is thicker than my father's waist, and now my father put a heavy yoke on you, but I add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I with scourges. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the sovereign commanded, saying, Come back to me the 3rd day. And the sovereign answered them harshly. Thus sovereign Rehoboam ignored the advice of the elders, and spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, but I add to it. My father chastised you with whips, but I with scourges. So the sovereign did not listen to the people, for the turn of events was from Elohim in order for Yahuwah to establish his word, which he had spoken by the hand of Ahayahu the Shilonite to Yarobeam son of Nebat. And when all Israel saw that the sovereign did not listen to them, the people answered the sovereign, saying, What portion have we in the weed? And we have no inheritance in the son of Yishai. Every man to your mighty ones, O Israel. Now see to your own house, O the weed. So all Israel went to their tents. But as for the children of Israel who dwelt in the cities of Yehudah, Rehabeam reigned over them. Then sovereign Rehabeam sent Hadoram, who was over the compulsory labor, and the children of Israel stoned him with stones, and he died. And sovereign Rehabeam hastily mounted his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. Thus Israel revolted against the house of David to this day. Second Chronicles chapter 11. And when Rehabeam came to Jerusalem, he assembled from the house of Yehudah and Benjamin 180,000 chosen brave men to fight against Israel, to bring back the reign to Rehabeam. But the word of Yahuwah came to Shema Yahu, the man of Elohim, saying, Speak to Rehabeam son of Shalomah, sovereign of Yehudah, and to all Israel in Yehudah and Benjamin, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, Do not go up or fight against your brothers. Let every man return to his house, for this matter is from me. So they obeyed the words of Yahuwah, and turned back from going against Yarobeam. And Rehabeam dwelt in Jerusalem, and built cities for a defense in Yehudah. And he built Bethlehem, and Etam, and Tekoa, and Bethzor, and Sako, and Adullam, and Goth, and Marshah, and Ziph, and Adoraim, and Lachish, and Azekah, and Tizorah, and Ayalon, and Hebron, which are in Yehudah and Benjamin, cities of defense. And he strengthened the strongholds, and put commanders in them, and stores of food, and oil, and wine, and shields and spears in every city, and made them very strong. Thus Yehudah and Benjamin were his. And from all their borders the priests and the Levites, who were in all Israel, took their stand with him. For the Levites left their open lands and their possessions, and came to Yehudah and Jerusalem. For Yarobeam and his sons had rejected them from serving as priests unto Yahuwah. As he appointed for himself priests for the high places, and for goats, and the calf idols which he had made. And after the Levites left, those from all the tribes of Israel, such as set their heart to seek Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, came to Jerusalem to offer to Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And they strengthened the reign of Yehudah, and made Rehabeam son of Shalomah strong for 3 years, for they walked in the way of David and Shalomah for 3 years. And Rehabeam took for himself as wife Mahatlath, the daughter of Jeremoth, son of David, and Abihail, the daughter of Eliab, son of Yishai. And she bore him sons, Euish, and Shemariah, and Zaham. And after her he took Maacah, the granddaughter of Absalom, and she bore him Abiah, and Attai, and Zazah, and Shelamith. And Rehabeam loved Maacah, the granddaughter of Absalom, more than all his wives and his concubines. For he had taken 18 wives and 60 concubines, and brought forth 28 sons and 60 daughters. And Rehabeam appointed Abiah, son of Maacah, as chief, to be leader among his brothers, in order to make him reign. And he had understanding, and dispersed some of his sons throughout all the lands of Yehudah and Benjamin, to all the cities of defense. and gave them ample provision, and he sought many wives for them. 2 Chronicles chapter 12. And it came to be when Rehabeam had established the reign and had strengthened himself, that he forsook the Torah of Yahuwah, and all Israel with him. And it came to be in the 5th year of sovereign Rehabeam, that Shishak, sovereign of Mizraim, came up against Jerusalem, because they had trespassed against Yahuwah, with 1,200 chariots and 60,000 horsemen, and innumerable people who came with him out of Mizraim, the Lubim, the Sukkites, and the Cushites. And he took the cities of defense of Yehuda and came to Jerusalem. And Shelemiah the prophet came to Rehabeam and the rulers of Yehuda, who had been gathered in Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said to them, Thus said Yahuwah, you have forsaken me, and therefore I also have left you in the hand of Shishak. Then the rulers of Israel and the sovereign humbled themselves, and they said, Yahuwah is righteous. And when Yahuwah saw that they humbled themselves, the word of Yahuwah came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves. I do not destroy them, but I shall give to them some deliverance, and not pour out my wrath on Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. But they are to become his servants, so that they know my service and the service of the reigns of the lands. And Shishak, sovereign of Mizraim, came up against Jerusalem, and took away the treasures of the house of Yahuwah, and the treasures of the sovereign's house. He took all. He also took the gold shields which Shalomo had made. And sovereign Rehabeam made bronze shields to replace them, and committed them into the hands of the chiefs of the guard, who guarded the entrance of the sovereign's house. And it came to be, whenever the sovereign went into the house of Yahuwah, the guard would go and bring them out. Then they would take them back into the guard room. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of Yahuwah turned from him, so as not to destroy him completely. And matters also went well in Yehuda. So sovereign Rehabeam strengthened himself in Jerusalem, and reigned, for Rehabeam was 41 years old when he became sovereign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Yahuwah had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, the Ammonites, and he did evil because he did not prepare his heart to seek Yahuwah. And the acts of Rehabeam, the first and the last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet, and of Iddo the seer, concerning genealogies? And there was fighting between Rehabeam and Jeroboam all the days. So Rehabeam slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David, and Abijah his son reigned in his place. 2 Chronicles chapter 13. In the 18th year of sovereign Jeroboam, Abijah began to reign over Yehuda. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Micaiah, the daughter of Uriel of Gibeah, and there was fighting between Abijah and Jeroboam. And Abijah joined battle with an army of mighty men of battle, 400,000 choice men. And Jeroboam drew up in battle formation against him with 800,000 choice men, mighty, brave men. And Abijah stood on Mount Tizamaraim, which is in the mountains of Ephraim, and said, Hear me, Jeroboam, and all Israel. Do you not know that Yahuwah Elohim of Israel has given the reign over Israel to David forever, to him and his sons by a covenant of salt? Yet Jeroboam son of Nebat, the servant of Shalamah son of David, rose up and rebelled against his master. And vain men gathered to him, sons of Belial, and strengthened themselves against Rehaboam son of Shalamah, when Rehaboam was young and tender of heart, and could not stand against them. And now you think to stand against the reign of Yahuwah, which is in the hand of the son of David, and you are a large crowd, and with you are the gold calves which Jeroboam made for you as mighty ones? Have you not thrown out the priests of Yahuwah, the sons of Aaron and Levites, and made for yourselves priests, like the peoples of the lands, so that whoever comes to ordain himself with a young bull and 7 rams, then becomes a priest of what are not mighty ones? But as for us, Yahuwah is our Elohim, and we have not forsaken him, and priests are serving Yahuwah, the sons of Aaron and the Levites, in the work, and are burning to Yahuwah every morning and every evening burnt offerings and sweet incense. And the showbread is set on the clean table, and the lampstand of gold with its lamps to burn every evening, for we are guarding the charge of Yahuwah our Elohim. But you have forsaken him. And see, with us as head is Elohim himself, and his priests with sounding trumpets to sound the alarm against you. O children of Israel, do not fight against Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, for you are not going to prosper. But Jeroboam sent round an ambush to go behind them. So they were in front of Yehudah, and the ambush was behind them. And Yehudah turned and saw the battle was both in front and behind them. Then they cried out to Yahuwah, and the priests sounded the trumpets. And the men of Yehudah gave a shout. And it came to be, as the men of Yehudah shouted, that Elohim smote Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Yehudah. And the children of Israel fled before Yehudah, and Elohim gave them into their hand. And Abijah and his people smote them with a great slaughter, and 500,000 choice men of Israel fell slain. And the children of Israel were humbled at that time, while the children of Yehudah prevailed, because they relied on Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And Abijah pursued Jeroboam and captured cities from him, Beth-el with its villages, and Yeshanah with its villages, and Ephron with its villages. And Jeroboam did not regain power again in the days of Abiyahu. And Yahuwah smote him, and he died. But Abijah grew strong and took 14 wives and brought forth 22 sons and 16 daughters. And the rest of the acts of Abijah and his ways and his words are written in the commentary of the prophet Iddu. Second Chronicles chapter 14. So Abijah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Asa his son reigned in his place. In his days the land rested 10 years, and Asa did what was good and what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah his Elohim, and removed the altars of the stranger and the high places, and broke down the pillars, and cut down the Asherim, and commanded Yehudah to seek Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, and to do the Torah and the command. And he removed the high places and the sun pillars from all the cities of Yehudah, and the rain rested under him. And he built cities of defense in Yehudah, since the land had rest, and he had no fighting in those years, because Yahuwah had given him rest. And he said to Yehuda, let us build these cities and make walls around them, and towers, gates, and bars, while the land is yet before us, because we have sought Yahuwah, our Elohim. We have sought, and he has given us rest all around. So they built and prospered, and Asher had an army of 300,000 men from Yehuda bearing shields and spears, and from Benjamin 280,000 men bearing shields and drew bows. All of them were mighty brave men. And Zerah the Cushite came out against them with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots, and he came to Mareshah. And Asher went out against him, and they set battle in array in the valley of Teshaphatha at Mareshah. And Asher called to Yahuwah his Elohim, and said, Yahuwah, there is no one but you to help between the mighty and the powerless. Help us, O Yahuwah our Elohim, for we rest on you, and in your name we go against this crowd. O Yahuwah, you are our Elohim. Do not let man prevail against you. So Yahuwah smote the Cushites before Asher, and Yehuda and the Cushites fled. And Asher and the people who were with him pursued them to Gerar. And the Cushites fell until none was left alive for them, for they were broken before Yahuwah and his army. And they took very much spoil, and smote all the cities around Gerar, for the fear of Yahuwah came upon them. And they plundered all the cities, for there was exceedingly much spoil in them. And they also smote the camps of the herdsmen, and captured many sheep and camels, and returned to Jerusalem. Second Chronicles chapter 15. And the spirit of Elohim came upon Arzayahu son of Oded. And he went out to face Asher, and said to him, Hear me, Asher, and all Yehuda and Benjamin. Yahuwah is with you while you are with him, and if you seek him, he is found by you. But if you forsake him, he forsakes you. And for many days Israel has been without the true Elohim, and without a Torah priest, and without Torah. But in their distress they turned to Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, and they sought him, and he was found by them. And in those days there was no peace to the one who went out, nor to the one who came in. For great disturbances were on all the inhabitants of the lands, and they were beaten down, nation by nation, and city by city. For Elohim troubled them with every distress. But you, be strong, and do not let your hands be feeble, for there is a reward for your work. And when Asher heard these words and the prophecy of Oded the prophet, he took courage, and removed the abominations from all the land of Yehuda and Benjamin, and from the cities which he had taken to the mountains of Ephraim, and restored the altar of Yahuwah that was before the porch of Yahuwah, and gathered all Yehuda and Benjamin, and those who sojourned with them from Ephraim and Manasseh and Shimron. For they came over to him in great numbers from Israel, when they saw that Yahuwah his Elohim was with him. And they gathered together at Jerusalem in the 3rd month and the 15th year of the reign of Asher, and offered to Yahuwah on that day 700 bulls and 7,000 sheep from the spoil which they had brought. And they entered into a covenant to seek Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers with all their heart and with all their being. And whoever would not seek Yahuwah Elohim of Israel would be put to death, from small to great, from man to woman. And they swore to Yahuwah with a loud voice, with shouting, and with trumpets, and with ram's horns. And all Yehuda rejoiced concerning the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart, and sought him with all their being, and he was found by them. And Yahuwah gave them rest all around. And he also removed Mahakah, the mother of Asher, the sovereign, from being sovereigness mother, because she had made an abominable image of Asherah. And Asher cut down her abominable image, and crushed it, and burned it by the Wadi Kidron. Yet the high places were not removed from Israel. However, the heart of Asher was perfect all his days. And he brought into the house of Elohim the set-apart items of his father, and his own set-apart items, silver and gold and utensils. And there was no more fighting until the 35th year of the reign of Asa. Second Chronicles chapter 16. In the 36th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha, the sovereign of Israel, came up against Yehudah and built Ramah, to prevent anyone going out or coming in to Asa, sovereign of Yehudah. And Asa brought silver and gold from the treasuries of the house of Yahuwah and of the sovereign's house, and sent to Benhadad, sovereign of Aram, who dwelt in Damascus, saying, Let there be a covenant between you and me, as there was between my father and your father. See, I have sent you silver and gold. Come, break your covenant with Baasha, sovereign of Israel, so that he withdraws from me. And Benhadad listened to sovereign Asher, and sent the commanders of his armies against the cities of Israel. And they smote Ayan and Dan and Abel, Mayam, and all the storage cities of Naphtali. And it came to be, when Baasha heard it, that he stopped building Ramah and ceased his work. Then Asher the sovereign brought all Yehudah, and they took away the stones and timber of Ramah, which Baasha had used for building, and with them he built Gibeah and Mizpah. And at that time Hanani the seer came to Asher, sovereign of Yehudah, and said to him, Because you have relied on the sovereign of Aram, and have not relied on Yahuwah your Elohim, therefore the army of the sovereign of Aram has escaped from your hand. Were the Cushites and the Lubim not a mighty army with very many chariots and horsemen? And because you relied on Yahuwah, he gave them into your hand. For the eyes of Yahuwah diligently search throughout all the earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is perfect to him. You have acted foolishly in this, so from now on you shall have battles. And Asher was wroth with the seer, and put him in prison, for he was enraged at him because of this. And Asher oppressed some of the people at that time. And look, the acts of Asher, the first and the last, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Yehudah and Israel. And in the 39th year of his reign, Asher became diseased in his feet, and his disease was severe. Yet even in his disease he did not seek Yahuwah, but the physicians. So Asher slept with his fathers and died in the 41st year of his reign. And they buried him in his own tomb, which he had made for himself in the city of David. And they laid him in the bed which was filled with spices and various kinds of ointments, mixed by the perfumer's skill. And they made a very great burning for him. 2 Chronicles chapter 17. And Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his place, and strengthened himself against Israel, and placed an army in all the walled cities of Yehudah, and set watch posts in the land of Yehudah and in the cities of Ephraim, which Asher his father had taken. And Yahuwah was with Jehoshaphat, for he walked in the former ways of his father David, and did not seek the Baals, but sought the Elohim of his father, and walked in his commands, and not according to the deeds of Israel. So Yahuwah established the reign in his hand. And all Yehudah gave presents to Jehoshaphat, and he had great riches and esteem. And his heart was exalted in the ways of Yahuwah, and he again removed the high places in the Asherim from Yehudah. And in the 3rd year of his reign he sent his leaders, Ben-Hail, and Obadiah, and Zechariah, and Nathaniel, and Micaiah to teach in the cities of Yehuda. And with them he sent Levites, Shemaiah and Nethanyahu and Zebayahu and Ashuel and Shemaramoth and Jonathan and Adoniyahu and Tobiyahu and Tobi-Adoniah, the Levites, and with them Elishama and Jehoram the priest. And they taught in Yehuda, and with them was the book of the Torah of Yahuwah. And they went around into all the cities of Yehuda and taught the people. And the fear of Yahuwah fell on all the reigns of the lands that were around Yehuda, and they did not fight against Jehoshaphat. And some of the Philistines brought Jehoshaphat gifts and a load of silver. And the Arabians brought him flocks, 7,700 rams and 7,700 male goats. And Jehoshaphat became increasingly great. And he built palaces and storage cities in Yehuda. And he had much work in the cities of Yehuda. And the men of battle, mighty brave men, were in Jerusalem. And these were their numbers according to their fathers' houses of Yehuda, the commanders of thousands, Atna, the commander, and with him 300,000 mighty brave men. And next to him was Jehohanan, the commander, and with him 280,000. And next to him was Amaziah, son of Zechariah, who volunteered himself to Yahuwah. And with him 200,000 mighty brave men. And of Benjamin, Eliada, a mighty brave one, and with him 200,000 men armed with bow and shield. And next to him was Jehozabad, and with him 180,000 prepared for battle. These were the ones serving the sovereign, besides those whom the sovereign put in the walled cities throughout all Yehuda. Second Chronicles chapter 18. And Jehoshaphat had great riches and esteem, and allied himself with Ahab by marriage. And some years later he went down to visit Ahab in Shamaron. And Ahab slaughtered many sheep and cattle for him, and the people with him, and excited him to go up with him to Ramoth Gilead. And Ahab, sovereign of Israel, said to Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, do you go with me against Ramoth Gilead? And he answered him, I am as you are, and my people as your people, even with you in battle. And Jehoshaphat said to the sovereign of Israel, please inquire for the word of Yahuwah today. And the sovereign of Israel gathered the prophets together, 400 men, and said to them, do we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or do I refrain? And they said, go up, for Elohim does give it into the sovereign's hand. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not still a prophet of Yahuwah here, so that we inquire of him? And the sovereign of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, there is still one man to inquire of Yahuwah from him, but I hate him, because he never prophesies good concerning me, but always evil. He is Micaiah, the son of Yimlah. And Jehoshaphat said, let not the sovereign say so. So the sovereign of Israel called one of his officers and said, bring Micaiah, son of Yimlah, at once. And the sovereign of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the sovereign of Yehuda, dressed in their robes, sat each on his throne, and they sat at a threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Shamaron. And all the prophets were prophesying before them. And Sidkiyahu, son of Kenanah, had made horns of iron for himself, and said, thus said Yahuwah, with these you push the Arameans until they are destroyed. And all the prophets were prophesying, so saying, go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, and Yahuwah shall give it into the hand of the sovereign. And the messenger who had gone to call Micaiah spoke to him, saying, See, the words of the prophets with one mouth are good towards the sovereign. So please let your word be like the word of one of them, and you shall speak good. And Micaiah said, As Yahuwah lives, whatever my Elohim says, that I speak. And he came to the sovereign, and the sovereign said to him, Micah, do we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or do I refrain? And he said, Go and prosper, and they are given into your hand. And the sovereign said to him, How many times have I made you swear that you do not speak to me except the truth in the name of Yahuwah? So he said, I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains as sheep that have no shepherd. And Yahuwah said, These have no master. Let each return to his house in peace. And the sovereign of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, Did I not say to you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? Then he said, Therefore hear the word of Yahuwah. I saw Yahuwah sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of the heavens standing on his right and on his left. And Yahuwah said, Who shall entice Ahab, sovereign of Israel, to go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said this, and another said that. And a spirit came forward and stood before Yahuwah and said, Let me entice him. Yahuwah said to him, In what way? And he said, I shall go out and be a spirit of falsehood in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, Entice him, and also prevail. Go out and do so. And now, see, Yahuwah has put a spirit of falsehood in the mouth of these prophets of yours, and Yahuwah has spoken evil concerning you. And Sidkiyahu, son of Kenani, came near and smote Micaiah on the cheek and said, Which way did the spirit of Yahuwah pass over from me to speak to you? And Micaiah said, Look, you shall see on that day when you go into an inner room to hide. Then the sovereign of Israel said, Take Micaiah and return him to Ammon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the sovereign's son, and say, Thus said the sovereign, Put this one in prison and feed him with bread of affliction and water of affliction until I return in peace. And Micaiah said, If you return at all in peace, Yahuwah has not spoken by me. And he said, Hear all you people. Then the sovereign of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the sovereign of Yehudah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the sovereign of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, Let me disguise myself and go into battle. But you put on your robes. And the sovereign of Israel disguised himself, and they went into battle. And the sovereign of Aram had commanded the commanders of the chariots who were with him, saying, Fight with no one small or great, but only with the sovereign of Israel. And it came to be, when the commanders of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, It is the sovereign of Israel. So they turned around to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out, and Yahuwah helped him, and Elohim moved them to turn away from him. And it came to be, when the commanders of the chariots saw that it was not the sovereign of Israel, that they turned back from pursuing him. And a man drew a bow in his simplicity, and smote the sovereign of Israel between the joints of his armor. And he said to the driver of his chariot, Turn around and take me out of the battle, for I am wounded. But the battle increased that day, and the sovereign of Israel was propped up in his chariot, facing the Arameans, until evening, and he died at the time of the going down of the sun. Second Chronicles chapter 19. And Jehoshaphat, the sovereign of Yehudah, returned to his house in peace in Jerusalem. And Yahu, son of Hanani, the seer, went out to face him, and said to sovereign Jehoshaphat, Do you help the wrong and love those who hate Yahuwah? Therefore the wrath of Yahuwah is upon you. But good matters are found in you, in that you have removed the Asheroth from the land, and have prepared your heart to seek Elohim. So Jehoshaphat dwelt in Jerusalem, and he went out again among the people from Beersheba to the hill country of Ephraim, and brought them back to Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And he appointed judges in the land and all the walled cities of Yehudah, city by city, and said to the judges, Watch what you are doing, for you do not judge for man, but for Yahuwah, who is with you in the matter of right ruling. And now let the fear of Yahuwah be upon you. Guard and do it, for there is no unrighteousness with Yahuwah our Elohim, nor partiality, nor taking of bribes. And in Jerusalem Jehoshaphat also appointed some of the Levites and priests, and some of the chief fathers of Israel, and the right ruling of Yahuwah, and for dispute. Then they returned to Jerusalem, and he commanded them, saying, Do this in the fear of Yahuwah, trustworthily, and with a perfect heart. When any dispute comes to you from your brothers who dwell in your cities, between blood and blood, between Torah and command, laws and right rulings, then you shall warn them lest they trespass against Yahuwah, and wrath come upon you and your brothers. Do this, and you shall not be guilty. And look, Amaryahu the chief priest is over you in all matters of Yahuwah, and Zabadyahu son of Yishmael, the ruler of the house of Yehudah, for all the matters of the sovereign and the Levites are officials before you. Be strong and do, and Yahuwah is with the good. Second Chronicles chapter 20. And after this it came to be that the children of Moab and the children of Ammon came in, and with them some of the peoples against Jehoshaphat to battle. And they came and spoke to Jehoshaphat, saying, A great army is coming against you from beyond the sea, from Aram. And see, they are in Hatzatzon Tamar, which is in Engedi. And Jehoshaphat was afraid, and set his face to seek Yahuwah, and proclaimed a fast throughout all Yehudah. And Yehudah gathered to inquire of Yahuwah, even from all the cities of Yehudah. They came to seek Yahuwah. And Jehoshaphat stood in the assembly of Yehudah and Jerusalem in the house of Yahuwah, in front of the new courtyard, and said, O Yahuwah, Elohim of our fathers, are you not Elohim in the heavens? And do you not rule over all the reigns of the nations? And in your hand is there not power and might, so that no one is able to stand against you? Are you not our Elohim? You have driven out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel, and gave it to the seed of Abraham your friend forever. And they dwell in it, and have built you a set-apart place in it for your name, saying, If evil does come upon us, such as the sword, judgment, or pestilence, or scarcity of food, we shall stand before this house and in your presence, for your name is in this house, and cry out to you in our distress, and you do hear and save. And now, see, the children of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir, whom you would not let Israel invade when they came out of the land of Mizraim, for they turned from them and did not destroy them. And see, they are repaying us by coming in to drive us out of your possession, which you have given us to inherit. O our Elohim, would you not judge them? For we are powerless against this great army that is coming against us, and we do not know what to do, but our eyes are upon you. And all Yehudah with their little ones, their wives, and their children stood before Yahuwah. And the Spirit of Yahuwah came upon Yahaziel, son of Zechariah, son of Benaiah, son of Yoel, son of Mattaniah, a Levite of the sons of Asaph, in the midst of the assembly. And he said, Listen, all Yehudah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem, and sovereign Jehoshaphat. Thus said Yahuwah to you, Do not fear, nor be afraid of the face of this great army, for the battle is not yours, but Elohim's. Go down against them tomorrow. See, they are coming up by the ascent of Sitz, and you shall find them at the end of the wadi before the wilderness of Uriel. It is not for you to fight in this. Position yourselves, stand still, and see the deliverance of Yahuwah with you, O Yehuda and Jerusalem. Do not be afraid nor fear. Go out against them tomorrow, for Yahuwah is with you. And Jehoshaphat bowed his head with his face to the ground. And all Yehuda and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell down before Yahuwah to bow themselves before Yahuwah. And the Levites of the children of the Kohathites and of the children of the Korhites stood up to praise Yahuwah Elohim of Israel with exceedingly loud voice. And they rose early in the morning and went out into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Hear me, O Yehuda, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Trust in Yahuwah your Elohim, and be steadfast. Trust his prophets and prosper. And after consulting with the people, he appointed those who should sing to Yahuwah and who should praise the splendor of set apartness as they went out before the army and were saying, Give thanks to Yahuwah, for his kindness is everlasting. And when they began singing and praising, Yahuwah set ambushes against the children of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, who had come against Yehuda, and they were smitten. Then the children of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, to destroy and annihilate them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another. And when Yehuda came at the lookout in the wilderness, they looked toward the army and saw their dead bodies lying on the ground, and none had escaped. And Jehoshaphat and his people came to take away their spoil. And they found among them a great amount of valuables on the dead bodies and precious jewelry, which they stripped off for themselves, more than they could take away. And they were 3 days plundering the spoil, for it was much. And on the 4th day they assembled in the valley of Berakah, for there they blessed Yahuwah. Therefore the name of that place was called the valley of Berakah to this day. Then they returned, every man of Yehuda and Jerusalem, with Jehoshaphat in front of them, to go back to Jerusalem with joy, for Yahuwah had made them rejoice over their enemies. And they came to Jerusalem with harps and lyres and trumpets to the house of Yahuwah. And the fear of Elohim was on all the reigns of the lands when they heard that Yahuwah had fought against the enemies of Israel. Then the reign of Jehoshaphat was at peace, for his Elohim gave him rest on all sides. Thus Jehoshaphat reigned over Yehuda 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shahai. And he walked in the way of his father Asher, and did not turn aside from it, doing what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah. Only the high places were not taken away, for as yet the people had not prepared their hearts for the Elohim of their fathers. And the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat, the first and the last, see, they are written in the book of Yahu, son of Anani, which is mentioned in the book of the sovereigns of Israel. And after this, Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, joined himself with Ahaziah, sovereign of Israel. He did wrong in doing so. And he joined himself with him to make ships to go to Tarshish, and they made the ships in Etzion Gibor. Then Eliezer, son of Dodawahu, of Marashah, prophesied against Jehoshaphat, saying, Because you have joined yourself with Ahaziah, Yahuwah shall break up your work. And the ships were wrecked, so that they were unable to go to Tarshish. 2 Chronicles chapter 21. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Jehoram his son reigned in his place. And he had brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah, and Jehiel, and Zechariah, and Azariah, and Michael, and Shaphatyahu. All these were sons of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Israel. And their father gave them many gifts of silver and gold and precious items, with walled cities in Yehudah. But he had given the reign to Jehoram, because he was the firstborn. And when Jehoram had risen up over the reign of his father, and made himself strong, he slew all his brothers with the sword, and also others of the heads of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the sovereigns of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done. For he had the daughter of Ahab as a wife, and he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah. However, Yahuwah would not destroy the house of David, because of the covenant he had made with David, and since he had promised to give a lamb to him and to his sons all the days. In his days the Edomites revolted from under the hand of Yehudah, and appointed a sovereign over themselves. Then Jehoram went out with his officers, and all his chariots with him. And it came to be that he rose by night and smote the Edomites, who had surrounded him, and the commanders of the chariots. Thus the Edomites revolted from under the hand of Yehudah to this day. Then Libnah revolted from under his hand, because he had forsaken Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers. He had also made high places in the mountains of Yehudah, and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit whoring, and led Yehudah astray. And a letter came to him from Eliyahu the prophet, saying, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of your father David, because you have not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat your father, or in the ways of Asher, sovereign over Yehudah, but have walked in the way of the sovereigns of Israel, and have made Yehudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit whoring like the whorings of the house of Ahab, and also have slain your brothers, those of your father's household, who were better than yourself. See, Yahuwah is going to strike with a great blow among your people, your children, your wives, and all your possessions, and you with many sicknesses, with disease of your intestines, until your intestines come out because of the sickness day by day. And Yahuwah stirred up the spirit of the Philistines against Jehoram, and of the Arabians who were near the Cushites. And they came up into Yehudah, and broke into it, and captured all the possessions that were found in the sovereign's house, and also his sons and his wives, so that there was not a son left to him except Jehoahaz, the youngest of his sons. And after all this, Yahuwah plagued him in his intestines with a disease for which there was no healing. And it came to be in the course of time, at the end of 2 years, that his intestines came out because of his sickness, and he died in great pain. And his people made no burning for him like the burning for his fathers. He was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem, to no one's regret, and passed away. And they buried him in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the sovereigns. Second Chronicles chapter 22. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem set up Ahaziah, his youngest son, to reign in his place, for the raiding band that came with the Arabians into the camp had slain all the older sons. So Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, sovereign of Yehudah, reigned. Ahaziah was 42 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. He too walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother counseled him to do wrong. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to his destruction. He also walked in their counsel and went with Jehoram son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel, to fight against Hazael, sovereign of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans smote Joram. And he returned to Israel to recover from the wounds which he had received at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, sovereign of Aram. And Azariah, son of Jehoram, sovereign of Yehuda, went down to see Jehoram, son of Ahab, in Yisrael, for he was sick. But from Elohim came the downfall of Ahaziah through his coming to Joram. For when he came, he went out with Jehoram against Yahu, son of Nimshi, whom Yahuwah had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. And it came to be, when Yahu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, that he found the rulers of Yehuda and the sons of Ahaziah, whose brothers who served Ahaziah, and slew them. So he searched for Ahaziah, and they caught him while he was hiding in Shamaron, and brought him to Yahu, and put him to death, then buried him. For they said, He is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought Yahuwah with all his heart. And there was none in the house of Ahaziah strong enough to reign. And when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she rose up and destroyed all the offspring of the reign of the house of Yehuda. But Jehoshabeath, the daughter of the sovereign, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the sovereign's sons who were slain, and put him and his nurse in a bedroom. So Jehoshabeath, the daughter of sovereign Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, because she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she could not put him to death. And he was hidden with them in the house of Elohim for 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. Second Chronicles chapter 23. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and made a covenant with the commanders of hundreds, Uzziah son of Jeroham, and Ishmael son of Jehohanan, and Uzziah son of Obed, and Maaseiah son of Adayahu, and Elishaphat son of Zachari. And they went about through Yehuda, and gathered the Levites from all the cities of Yehuda, and the chiefs of the fathers of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. And all the assembly made a covenant with the sovereign in the house of Elohim. And he said to them, See, the son of the sovereign is to reign as Yahuwah has said of the sons of David. This is what you do. 1/3 of you entering on the Sabbath of the priests and the Levites, gatekeepers of the thresholds, and 1/3 are at the sovereign's house, and 1/3 at the gate of the foundation, while all the people are in the courtyards of the house of Yahuwah. And let no one come into the house of Yahuwah except the priests and those of the Levites who serve. They go in, for they are set apart. But all the people are to guard the charge of Yahuwah. And the Levites shall surround the sovereign on all sides, every man with his weapons in his hand. And whoever comes into the house, let him be put to death. And be with the sovereign when he comes in and when he goes out. And the Levites and all Yehuda did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And each man took his men who were to come in on the Sabbath with those going out on the Sabbath. For Jehoiada the priest did not dismiss the divisions. And Jehoiada the priest gave to the commanders of hundreds the spears and the large and small shields which had been sovereign David's, that were in the house of Elohim. And he set all the people, every man with his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, along by the altar and by the house all around the sovereign. And they brought out the son of the sovereign, and put on him the diadem and the witness, and set him up to reign. Then Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and said, Let the sovereign live. And Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the sovereign, and she came to the people in the house of Yahuwah, and looked and saw the sovereign standing by his column at the entrance. And the chiefs and the trumpeters were beside the sovereign, and all the people of the land rejoicing and blowing trumpets, also the singers with instruments of song, and those who led in praise. Then Athaliah tore her garments and said, Treason! Treason! And Jehoiada the priest brought out the commanders of hundreds who were set over the army, and said to them, Take her outside the ranks, and slay with the sword whoever follows her. For the priest said, Do not kill her in the house of Yahuwah. So they laid hands on her, and she went by way of the entrance of the horse gate into the sovereign's house, and they put her to death there. Jehoiada then made a covenant between himself and the people and the sovereign to be the people of Yahuwah. And all the people went to the house of Baal and broke it down. They completely broke up its altars and images, and slew Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And Jehoiada put the offices of the house of Yahuwah into the hand of the priests, the Levites, whom David had assigned in the house of Yahuwah, to offer the burnt offerings of Yahuwah, as it is written in the Torah of Moshe, with rejoicing and with singing by the hands of David. And he set the gatekeepers at the gates of the house of Yahuwah, so that no one who was in any way unclean should enter. And he took the commanders of hundreds and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the sovereign down from the house of Yahuwah. And they went through the upper gate to the sovereign's house, and set the sovereign on the throne of the reign. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city had rest, for they had slain Athaliah with the sword. 2 Chronicles chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. And the name of his mother was Tisbiah of Beersheba. And Joash did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And Jehoiada took for him 2 wives, and he brought forth sons and daughters. And after this it came to be that Joash set his heart on restoring the house of Yahuwah. And he gathered the priests and the Levites, and said to them, Go out to the cities of Yehudah, and gather from all Israel silver to repair the house of your Elohim from year to year, and see that you hurry the matter. But the Levites did not hurry it. And the sovereign called Jehoiada the chief, and said to him, Why have you not required the Levites to bring in from Yehudah and from Jerusalem the levy of Moshe, the servant of Yahuwah, and of the assembly of Israel for the tent of the witness? For the sons of Athaliah, that wrong woman, had broken into the house of Elohim, and had also prepared all the set-apart vessels of the house of Yahuwah to the Baals. So the sovereign commanded, and they made a chest, and set it outside at the gate of the house of Yahuwah, and made it known in Yehudah and in Jerusalem to bring to Yahuwah the levy that Moshe, the servant of Elohim, had imposed on Israel in the wilderness. And all the rulers and all the people rejoiced, and they brought in and put them into the chest to completion. And it came to be at that time, when the chest was brought to the sovereign's official by the hand of the Levites, And when they saw that there was much silver, that the servant scribe and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest, and took it and returned it to its place. So they did day by day, and gathered a large amount of silver. And the sovereign and Jehoiada gave it to those who did the work of the service of the house of Yahuwah. And they hired stonemasons and carpenters to restore the house of Yahuwah, and also those who worked in iron and bronze to prepare the house of Yahuwah. And the workmen labored, and the work of restoration progressed in their hands, and they established the house of Elohim to its proper form and strengthened it. And when they had finished, they brought the rest of the silver before the sovereign and Jehoiada, and they made utensils from it for the house of Yahuwah, utensils for serving and offering, ladles and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of Yahuwah continually all the days of Jehoiada. And Jehoiada was old and satisfied with days, and died 130 years old when he died. And they buried him in the city of David among the sovereigns, for he had done good in Israel, both toward Elohim and his house. And after the death of Jehoiada, the rulers of Yehuda came and bowed themselves to the sovereign, and the sovereign listened to them. And they forsook the house of Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, and served the Asherim and the idols. And wrath came upon Yehuda and Jerusalem because of their trespass. And he sent prophets to them to bring them back to Yahuwah. And they witnessed against them, but they did not listen. Then the spirit of Elohim came upon Zechariah, son of Jehoiada the priest, who stood above the people, and said to them, Thus said Elohim, Why are you transgressing the commands of Yahuwah, and do not prosper? Because you have forsaken Yahuwah, he has forsaken you. And they conspired against him, and at the command of the sovereign they stoned him with stones in the courtyard of the house of Yahuwah. Thus Joash the sovereign did not remember the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, and slew his son. And as he died, he said, Yahuwah does see and repay. And it came to be at the turn of the year that the army of Aram came up against him, and they came into Yehuda and Jerusalem, and destroyed all the rulers of the people from among the people, and sent all their spoil to the sovereign of Damascus. For the army of Aram came with few men, but Yahuwah gave a very great army into their hand, because they had forsaken Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. So they executed judgment against Joash. And when they had withdrawn from him, for they left him very sick, his own servants conspired against him because of the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and slew him on his bed, and he died. And they buried him in the city of David, but they did not bury him in the tombs of the sovereigns. And these are the ones who conspired against him: Zobad, the son of Shemath, the Ammonites, and Jehozabad, the son of Shemerith, the Moabites, as to his sons, and the many words about him. And the rebuilding of the house of Elohim, see, they are written in the commentary of the book of the sovereigns. And Amaziah, his son, reigned in his place. Second Chronicles, chapter 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And the name of his mother was Jehoadan of Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, but not with a perfect heart. And it came to be, when the reign was established for him, that he slew his servants who had smitten his father the sovereign. But he did not put their children to death, but did as it is written in the Torah in the book of Moshe, where Yahuwah commanded, saying, Fathers are not put to death for their children, and children are not put to death for their fathers, but each one has to die for his own sin. And Amaziah gathered Yehudah and set over them commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, according to the fathers' houses, for all Yehudah and Benjamin. And he registered them from 20 years old and above, and found them to be 300,000 choice men going out to the army, handling spear and shield. And he hired 100,000 mighty brave ones from Israel for 100 talents of silver. But a man of Elohim came to him, saying, O sovereign, do not let the army of Israel go with you, for Yahuwah is not with Israel with all the children of Ephraim. But if you are going, do it. Be strong in battle, else Elohim would make you fall before the enemy. For Elohim has power to help and to overthrow. And Amaziah said to the man of Elohim, But what do we do about the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? And the man of Elohim answered, Yahuwah has more to give you than this. So Amaziah dismissed the army that had come to him from Ephraim to go back home. And they were greatly enraged against Yehudah, and they returned home in a rage. And Amaziah strengthened himself, and led his people, and went to the valley of Salt, and smote 10,000 of the sons of Seir. And the sons of Yehudah took captive another 10,000 alive, and they brought them to the top of the rock, and threw them down from the top of the rock, and all of them were dashed to pieces. And the soldiers of the army which Amaziah had sent back from going with him to battle, they raided the cities of Yehudah from Shamaron to Beth Haran, and smote 3,000 in them, and took much spoil. And it came to be, after Amaziah came from smiting the Edomites, that he brought the mighty ones of the people of Seir, and set them up to be his mighty ones, and bowed down before them, and burned incense to them. Therefore the displeasure of Yahuwah burned against Amaziah. And he sent him a prophet who said to him, Why have you sought the mighty ones of the people which did not deliver their own people from your hand? And it came to be, as he talked with him, that the sovereign said to him, Have we appointed you counselor to the sovereign? Stop! Why should they smite you? Then the prophet stopped and said, I know that Elohim has counseled to destroy you, because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel. And Amaziah, sovereign of Yehudah, took counsel, and sent to Joash, son of Jehoahaz, son of Yahu, sovereign of Israel, saying, Come, let us look each other in the face. And Joash, sovereign of Israel, sent to Amaziah, sovereign of Yehudah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give your daughter to my son as wife. And a wild beast that was in Lebanon passed by and trampled the thistle. You have said, See, I have smitten Edom, and your heart has lifted you up to boast. Now stay at home. Why should you stir up yourself to evil, that you should fall, you and Yehudah with you? But Amaziah did not listen, for it came from Elohim, in order to give them into the hand of their enemies, because they had sought the mighty ones of Edom. So Joash, sovereign of Israel, went out, and he and Amaziah, sovereign of Yehudah, faced one another at Beth Shemesh, which belongs to Yehudah. And Yehudah was smitten before Israel, and they each fled to his tent. And Joash, the sovereign of Israel, caught Amaziah, sovereign of Yehudah, son of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, at Beth Shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate 400 cubits, and took all the gold and the silver and all the utensils that were found in the house of Elohim with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the servants' house and hostages, and returned to Shamaron. And Amaziah, son of Joash, sovereign of Yehudah, lived 15 years after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, sovereign of Israel. And the rest of the acts of Amaziah, from the first to the last, see, are they not written in the book of the sovereigns of Yehudah and Israel? And from the time that Amaziah turned away from following Yahuwah, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. And they sent after him to Lachish and killed him there. And they brought him on horses and buried him with his fathers in the city of Yehudah. Second Chronicles chapter 26. And all the people of Yehudah took Josiah, who was 16 years old, and set him up to reign instead of his father Amaziah. He built Elath and restored it to Yehudah after the sovereign slept with his fathers. Josiah was 16 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Yacholiah of Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, according to all that his father Amaziah did. And he sought Elohim in the days of Zedekiah, who had understanding in the visions of Elohim. And while he sought Yahuwah, Elohim made him prosper. And he went out and fought against the Philistines, and broke down the wall of Gath, and the wall of Yabneh, and the wall of Ashdod, and built cities around Ashdod and among the Philistines. And Elohim helped him against the Philistines, and against the Arabians who lived in Gur, Baal, and the Meunites. And the Ammonites gave gifts to Uzziah, and his name spread as far as the entrance of Mizraim, for he strengthened himself greatly. And Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, and at the valley gate, and at the corner buttress, and strengthened them. And he built towers in the wilderness, and dug many wells, for he had much livestock, both in the low country and in the plain, farmers and vine dressers in the mountains and in Carmel, for he loved the soil. And Josiah had an army of fighting men who went out to battle by divisions according to the number on their roll, as prepared by Uel the scribe and Maaseiah the officer, under the hand of Hananiah, one of the sovereign's commanders. The total number of the clan chiefs of the mighty brave ones was 2,600. And under their hand was an army of 307,500 that fought with mighty power to help the sovereign against the enemy. And Josiah prepared for them, for the entire army, shields and spears and helmets and body armor and bows and sling stones. And he made machines in Jerusalem devised by skilled men to be on the towers and the corners to shoot arrows and large stones. And his name spread far and wide, for he was marvelously helped till he became strong. But when he became strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. For he trespassed against Yahuwah his Elohim by entering the hekel of Yahuwah to burn incense on the altar of incense. And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him were 80 priests of Yahuwah who were brave men. And they stood up against sovereign Uzziah and said to him, It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to Yahuwah, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are set apart to burn incense. Get out of the set apart place, for you have trespassed, and there is no esteem to you from Yahuwah Elohim. And Uzziah was wroth, and he had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was wroth with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead before the priest in the house of Yahuwah beside the incense altar. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked at him and saw that he was leprous on his forehead, and they hurried him from there. And he also hurried to get out, because Yahuwah had struck him. And sovereign Josiah was a leper until the day of his death, and dwelt in a separate house, because he was a leper. For he was cut off from the house of Yahuwah. And Jotham his son was over the sovereign's house, ruling the people of the land. And the rest of the acts of Josiah, from the first to the last, the prophet Yahu the son of Amos wrote. So Yahu slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the field of burial which belonged to the sovereigns, for they said he is a leper. And Jotham his son reigned in his place. 2 Chronicles chapter 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, according to all that his father Uzziah had done. Only he did not come into the hekel of Yahuwah. And the people continued to act corruptly. He built the upper gate of the house of Yahuwah, and he built much on the wall of Ophel. And he built cities in the hill country of Yehudah, and in the forest he built palaces and towers. And he fought with the sovereign of the Ammonites, and prevailed over them. And the children of Ammon gave him in that year 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 cores of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. This is what the children of Ammon paid him. Also in the second and third years. And Jotham strengthened himself, for he prepared his ways before Yahuwah his Elohim. And the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his battles and his ways, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel and Yehudah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. So Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And his son Ahaz reigned in his place. Thank you for that. 2 Chronicles chapter 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, as his father David had done, and walked in the ways of the sovereigns of Israel, and made molded images for the Baals. And he himself burned incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burned his children in the fire, according to the abominations of the Gentiles whom Yahuwah dispossessed from before the children of Israel, and slaughtered and burned incense on the high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Therefore Yahuwah his Elohim gave him into the hand of the sovereign of Aram, and they smote him, and took many of them away as captives, and brought them to Damascus. And he was also given into the hand of the sovereign of Israel, who smote him with a great slaughter. And Pekah son of Ramaliah slew 120,000 in Yehudah in one day, all brave men, because they had forsaken Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And Zachari, a mighty man of Ephraim, slew Maaseyahu, son of the sovereign, and Azrikam, the officer over the house, and Elkanah, who was second to the sovereign. And the children of Israel took captive from their brothers 200,000 women, sons, and daughters. And they also seized from them much spoil, and they brought the spoil to Shamaron. But a prophet of Yahuwah was there, whose name was Oded. And he went out before the army that came to Shamaron, and said to them, See, because Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers was displeased with Yehudah, he has given them into your hand, and you have slain them in a rage that reaches up to the heavens. And now you are planning to make the children of Yehudah and Jerusalem your male and female slaves. But are you not also guilty before Yahuwah your Elohim? Now therefore listen to me, and return the captives whom you have taken captive from your brothers, for the heat of the wrath of Yahuwah is upon you. And some of the heads of the children of Ephraim, Azariah son of Yehohanan, Barakyahu son of Meshillemoth, and Zekiyahu son of Shalom, and Amasa son of Hadliah, stood up against those who came from the army, and said to them, Do not bring the captives here, to bring on us guilt before Yahuwah. Are you planning to add to our sins and to our guilt? For our guilt is great, and burning is the wrath on Israel. And the armed men left the captives and the spoil before the leaders and all the assembly. And the men who were designated by name rose up and took the captives. And from the spoil they put on all the naked among them, dressed them, and gave them sandals, and gave them food and drink, and anointed them, and let all the weak ones ride on donkeys, and brought them to their brothers at Jericho, the city of palm trees, then returned to Shamaron. At that time Sovereign Ahaz sent to the servants of Asher to help him. For the Edomites had come again and smote Yehudah and took away captives. And the Philistines invaded the cities of the low country and of the south of Yehudah and captured Beth-Shemesh and Ayalon and Gederoth and Sako with its villages and Timnah with its villages and Gimzo with its villages and dwelt there. For Yahuwah had brought Yehudah low because of Ahaz, sovereign of Israel. For he brought about a lack of restraint in Yehudah, and trespassed against Yahuwah. And the Tiglath-Pileser, the sovereign of Asher, came against him and distressed him, and did not help him. Though Ahaz had taken some of the treasures from the house of Yahuwah, from the house of the sovereign, and from the leaders, and he gave it to the sovereign of Asher, but he did not help him. And in the time of his distress, sovereign Ahaz trespassed even more against Yahuwah the sovereign Ahaz, and he slaughtered to the mighty ones of Damascus, those smiting him, saying, Because the mighty ones of the sovereigns of Aram helped them, I offered to them, and they helped me. But they were to cause him and all Israel to stumble. And Ahaz gathered the utensils of the house of Elohim, and cut in pieces the utensils of the house of Elohim, and shut the doors of the house of Yahuwah, and made for himself altars on every corner of Jerusalem. And in every city, even the cities of Yehudah, he made high places to burn incense to other mighty ones, and provoked Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers. And the rest of his acts and all his ways from first to last, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Yehudah and Israel. So Ahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city in Jerusalem, but they did not bring him into the tombs of the sovereigns of Israel. And Hezekiah, his son, reigned in his place. Second Chronicles chapter 29. Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abiah, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, according to all that his father David did. In the first year of his reign, in the first month, he opened the doors of the house of Yahuwah, and repaired them, and brought in the priests and the Levites, and gathered them in the open place to the east. And he said to them, Listen to me, O Levites. Now set yourselves apart. Set apart the house of Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, and remove the uncleanness from this set apart place. For our fathers have trespassed, and have done evil in the eyes of Yahuwah our Elohim, and have forsaken him, and have turned their faces away from the dwelling place of Yahuwah, and have given their backs. And they have shut the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and they have not burned incense or offered burnt offerings in the set-apart place to the Elohim of Israel. Therefore the wrath of Yahuwah fell upon Yehudah and Jerusalem, and he has given them up for trembling, for an astonishment, and for a hissing, as you see with your eyes. And see, because of this our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this. Now it is in my heart to make a covenant with Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, so that the heat of his wrath turns away from us. My sons, do not be slack, for Yahuwah has chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, and to be attendants for him, and burn incense. And the Levites rose up, Mahath son of Amaziah, and Joel son of Azayahu, of the sons of the Kehathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish son of Abda, and Azayahu son of Yahaliel, and of the Gerizonites, Yoha the son Zimmah, and Eden, son of Joah. And of the sons of Elisaphan, Shemri and Yeiel. And of the sons of Asaph, Zechariah and Mattanyahu. And of the sons of Haman, Yeiel and Shammai. And of the sons of Jeduthun, Shemaiah and Uzziel. And they gathered their brothers and set themselves apart and went according to the command of the sovereign at the words of Yahuwah to cleanse the house of Yahuwah. And the priests came into the inner part of the house of Yahuwah to cleanse it, and brought out all the uncleanness they found in the hekel of Yahuwah to the courtyard of the house of Yahuwah. Then the Levites received it to take it outside to the water Kidron. And they began to set apart on the first day of the first month, and on the 8th day of the month they came to the porch of Yahuwah. And they set apart the house of Yahuwah in 8 days. And on the 16th day of the first month they had finished. Then they came into sovereign Hezekiah and said, We have cleansed all the house of Yahuwah, and the altar of burnt offerings with all its utensils, and the table of the showbread with all its utensils, and all the utensils which sovereign Ahaz in his reign had pushed aside when he trespassed. We have prepared and set apart, and see, they are before the altar of Yahuwah. And sovereign Hezekiah rose up early and gathered the heads of the city and went up to the house of Yahuwah. And they brought 7 bulls and 7 rams and 7 lambs and 7 male goats for a sin offering for the rain, for the set-apart place, and for Yehudah. And he said to the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them on the altar of Yahuwah. So they slaughtered the bulls, and the priests received the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. And they slaughtered the rams and sprinkled the blood on the altar. And they slaughtered the lambs and sprinkled the blood on the altar. And they brought out the male goats of the sin offering before the sovereign and the assembly, and they laid their hands on them. And the priests slaughtered them, and with their blood made a sin offering on the altar to make an atonement for all Israel. For the sovereign said that the burnt offering and the sin offering is for all Israel. And he appointed the Levites in the house of Yahuwah with cymbals, with harps, and with lyres, according to the command of David and of Gad, seer of the sovereign, and of Nathan the prophet. For the command was by the hand of Yahuwah, by the hand of his prophets. And the Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets. And Hezekiah gave the order to offer the burnt offering on the altar. And when the burnt offering began, the singing unto Yahuwah began with the trumpets and with the instruments of David, sovereign of Israel. And all the assembly were bowing, and the singers singing, and the trumpeters blowing, all this until the burnt offering was completed. And at the completion of the offering, the sovereign and all who were present with him bowed and worshipped. And sovereign Hezekiah and the rulers ordered the Levites to sing praise to Yahuwah with the words of David and of Asaph the seer. And they sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worshipped. And Hezekiah responded and said, Now that you have ordained yourselves to Yahuwah, come near and bring slaughterings and thank offerings into the house of Yahuwah. And the assembly brought in slaughterings and thank offerings, and all those whose hearts were so moved brought burnt offerings. And the number of the burnt offerings which the assembly brought was 70 bulls, 100 rams, 200 lambs, all these for a burnt offering to Yahuwah. And the set-apart gifts were 600 bulls and 3,000 sheep. Only the priests were too few, and were unable to skin all the burnt offerings. So their brothers the Levites helped them until the work was completed, and until the other priests had set themselves apart. For the Levites were more upright of heart to set themselves apart than the priests. And there were also many burnt offerings, with the fat of the peace offerings, and with the drink offerings for every burnt offering. Thus the service of the house of Yahuwah was re-established, and Hezekiah and all the people rejoiced that Elohim had prepared the people, because the matter came about so suddenly. Second Chronicles chapter 30. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Yehudah. And he also wrote letters to Ephraim and Manasseh, to come to the house of Yahuwah at Jerusalem, to perform the Passover to Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. But the sovereign and his leaders and all the assembly in Jerusalem had taken counsel to perform the Passover in the 2nd month, for they were unable to perform it at its time, because not enough priests had set themselves apart, and the people had not gathered at Jerusalem. And the matter was right in the eyes of the sovereign and in the eyes of all the assembly. And they settled the matter to send a call to all Israel from Beersheba to Dan, to come to perform a Passover to Yahuwah Elohim of Israel at Jerusalem, since they had not done it for a long time, as it is written. And the rumors went to all Israel and Yehudah with the letters from the sovereign and his leaders, and spoke according to the command of the sovereign, children of Israel. Turn back to Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Yishak, and Israel, so that he returns to the remnant of you who have escaped from the hand of the servants of Ashur. And do not be like your fathers and like your brothers, who trespassed against Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, so that he gave them up to ruin, as you see. Now do not stiffen your neck like your father. Stretch forth a hand to Yahuwah, and come to his set-apart place, which he has set apart forever, and serve Yahuwah your Elohim, so that his burning wrath turns away from you. For if you turn back to Yahuwah, your brothers and your children shall be shown compassion by their captors, even to return to this land. For Yahuwah your Elohim shows favor and compassion, and does not turn his face from you, if you turn back to him. And the runners passed from city to city throughout the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, as far as Zebulun. But they were laughing at them and mocking them. Some from Asher and Manasseh and from Zebulun, however, humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Also the hand of Elohim was on Yehudah, to give them one heart to do the command of the sovereign and the rulers at the word of Yahuwah. And many people, a very great assembly, gathered at Jerusalem to perform the festival of unleavened bread in the 2nd month. And they rose up and removed the altars that were in Jerusalem. And they removed all the incense altars and threw them into the water Kidron. Then they slaughtered the Passover on the 14th day of the 2nd month. And the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and set themselves apart, and brought the burnt offerings to the house of Yahuwah. And they stood in their place according to their right ruling, according to the Torah of Moshe, the man of Elohim. The priests sprinkled the blood from the hand of the Levites, for many in the assembly had not set themselves apart. Therefore the Levites were over the slaughter of the Passover for everyone who was not clean, to set them apart to Yahuwah. For many of the people, many from Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not been cleansed, yet they ate the Passover, contrary to what was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, Yahuwah, who is good, provide atonement for everyone, who has prepared his heart to seek Elohim Yahuwah, Elohim of his fathers, though he is not cleansed according to the cleansing of the set-apart place. And Yahuwah listened to Hezekiah and healed the people. And the children of Israel, who were in Jerusalem, performed the festival of unleavened bread 7 days with great joy. And the Levites and the priests praised Yahuwah day by day with instruments of praise before Yahuwah. And Hezekiah spoke to the heart of all the Levites, those having good understanding concerning Yahuwah. So they ate what was appointed 7 days, slaughtering peace offerings and making confession to Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And all the assembly took counsel to perform another 7 days, and they performed it another 7 days with joy. For Hezekiah, sovereign of Yehudah, presented to the assembly 1,000 bulls and 7,000 sheep. And the rulers presented to the assembly 1,000 bulls and 10,000 sheep, and a great number of priests set themselves apart. And all the assembly of Yehudah rejoiced, and the priests and Levites and all the assembly who had come from Israel, and the sojourners who came from the land of Israel, and those who dwelt in Yehudah. And there came to be great joy in Jerusalem, for since the days of Shalomo, son of David, the sovereign of Israel. The like of this had not been in Jerusalem. And the priests, the Levites, rose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his set-apart dwelling place to heaven. Second Chronicles chapter 31. And at the completion of all this, all Israel who were present went out to the cities of Yehudah, and broke down the pillars, and cut down the Asherim, and tore down the high places and the altars from all Yehudah, and Benjamin, and in Ephraim and Manasseh, even to completion. Then all the children of Israel returned to their own cities, each to his possession. And Hezekiah appointed the divisions of the priests and of the Levites according to their divisions, each according to his service of the priests and Levites for burnt offerings and peace offerings, to serve and to give thanks and to praise in the gates of the camp of Yahuwah. And the sovereign appointed a portion of his possessions for the burnt offerings, for the morning and evening burnt offerings, and the burnt offerings for the Sabbaths and for the new moons and for the appointed times, as it is written in the Torah of Yahuwah. And he said to the people, those who dwelt in Jerusalem, to give the portion for the priests and the Levites, so that they are strengthened in the Torah of Yahuwah. And as the word spread, the children of Israel brought large quantities of the first fruits of grain and wine and oil and honey, and of all the increase of the field. And they brought in the tithe of all, a large amount. And the children of Israel and Yehudah, those who dwelt in the cities of Yehudah, brought the tithe of cattle and sheep, even the tithe of set-apart gifts which were set apart to Yahuwah. Their Elohim were brought in, and they gave heaps. In the 3rd month they began to pile up the heaps, and they finished in the 7th month. And Hezekiah and the leaders came and saw the heaps, and they blessed Yahuwah and his people Israel. And Hezekiah asked the priests and the Levites about the heaps. And Uzziah, the chief priest from the house of Zadok, answered him and said, since they began to bring the offerings into the house of Yahuwah, we have had enough to eat and have plenty left. For Yahuwah has blessed his people, and this great amount is left over. And Hezekiah ordered them to prepare rooms in the house of Yahuwah, and they prepared them. Then they brought in the contribution and the tithes and the set-apart gifts trustworthily. And Conaiah the Levite was leader over them, and Shammai his brother was the next. And Yael and Azariah and Nahath and Azael and Yeremoth and Jozabad and Eliel and Yishmachiah and Mahath and Benaiah were overseers under the hand of Conaiah and Shammai his brother, by order of Hezekiah the sovereign, and Azariah the ruler of the house of Elohim. And Kor, son of Yemnah the Levite, the keeper of the east gate, was over the voluntary offerings to Elohim, to distribute the offerings of Yahuwah and the most set-apart gifts. And under his hand were Eden, and Miniamin, and Yeshua, and Shemaiah, Amariah, and Shechaniah, in the cities of the priests, to distribute trustworthily to their brothers by divisions, to the great as well as the small, besides those males from 3 years old and up who were written in the genealogy. They distributed to everyone who entered the house of Yahuwah his daily portion for the work of his service by his division, and to the priests who were written in the genealogy according to their father's house, and to the Levites from 20 years old upward, by their duties in their divisions, and to all listed in the genealogy, their little ones and their wives, their sons and daughters, all the company of them. For in their trustworthiness they set themselves apart in set-apartness. And for the sons of Aaron, the priests who were in the fields of the open land of their cities, in each and every city, there were men who were called by name to distribute portions to all the males among the priests, and to all who were listed by genealogies among the Levites. And Hezekiah did this in all Yehudah, and he did what was good and what was right and what was true before Yahuwah his Elohim. And in every work that he began in the service of the house of Elohim, in the Torah and in the command to seek his Elohim with all his heart. He did and prospered. Second Chronicles chapter 32. After these matters and this trustworthiness, Sanherib, sovereign of Ashur, came, and he entered Yehudah and encamped against the cities of defense, and said to break them open to himself. And Hezekiah saw that Sanherib had come, and his face set to fight against Jerusalem. And he took counsel with his rulers and mighty men to stop the water from the springs which were outside the city, and they helped him. And many people were gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the stream that ran through the land, saying, Why should the sovereigns of Ashur come and find much water? And he strengthened himself and built up all the wall that was broken, and raised it up to the towers, and outside of it another wall, and strengthened Millo, the city of David, and made large numbers of weapons and shields. And he appointed battle officers over the people, and gathered them to him in the open space at the city gate, and spoke to their hearts, saying, Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, nor be cast down before the sovereign of Ashur, not before all the army that is with him. For with us there are more than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is Yahuwah our Elohim, to help us and to fight our battles. And the people leaned on the words of Hezekiah, sovereign of Yehudah. After this, Sanherib, the sovereign of Ashur, sent his servants to Jerusalem, but he himself and all his power with him against Lachish, to Hezekiah, sovereign of Yehudah, and to all Yehudah who were in Jerusalem, saying, Thus said Sanherib, the sovereign of Ashur, On what are you trusting that you remain in Jerusalem under siege? Is Hezekiah not persuading you to give yourselves over to die by scarcity of food and by thirst, saying, Yahuwah our Elohim shall deliver us from the hand of the sovereign of Ashur? Has not Hezekiah himself taken away his high places and his altars, and ordered Yehudah and Jerusalem, saying, Bow yourselves before one altar and burn incense on it? Do you not know what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of other lands? Were the mighty ones of the nations of those lands in any way able to deliver their lands out of my hand? Who was there among all the mighty ones of those nations that my fathers put under the ban that could deliver his people from my hand, that your Elohim should be able to deliver you from my hand? And now, do not let Hezekiah deceive you or persuade you like this, and do not believe him, for no mighty one of any nation or reign was able to deliver his people from my hand or the hand of my fathers, much less your Elohim to deliver you from my hand. And his servants spoke even more against Yahuwah Elohim and against his servant Hezekiah. And he wrote letters to reproach Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, and to speak against him, saying, As the mighty ones of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people from my hand, so the Elohim of Hezekiah shall not deliver his people from my hand. Then they called out with a loud voice in the language of Yehudah to the people of Jerusalem who were on the wall, to frighten them and to trouble them in order to capture the city. And they spoke against the Elohim of Jerusalem, as against the mighty ones of the people of the earth, the work of men's hands. And sovereign Hezekiah and the prophet Yeshayahu, son of Amoz, prayed about this and cried out to the heavens. And Yahuwah sent a messenger who cut down every mighty brave one, both the leader and the commander, in the camp of the sovereign of Ashur. And he returned shamefaced to his own land, and went into the house of his mighty one, and there some of his own offspring caused him to fall by the sword. Thus Yahuwah saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sanherib, the sovereign of Ashur, and from the hand of all others, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts to Yahuwah at Jerusalem, and presents to Hezekiah, sovereign of Yehudah. And he was exalted in the eyes of all nations thereafter. In those days Hezekiah was sick and near death, and he prayed to Yahuwah, and he spoke to him and appointed a sign for him. However, Hezekiah did not repay according to the good done to him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore wrath came upon him and upon Yehudah and Jerusalem. Then Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of Yahuwah did not come upon them in the days of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah had much riches and esteem, and he made himself treasuries for silver and for gold and for precious stones and for spices and for shields and for all desirable utensils, and storehouses for the harvest of grain and wine and oil, and stalls for all kinds of livestock, and folds for flocks. And he made cities for himself, and possessions of great numbers of flocks and herds, for Elohim gave him much property. And Hezekiah himself had stopped the upper outlet of the waters of Gihon, and directed them to the west side of the city of David. And Hezekiah prospered in all his work. However, with the envoys of the princes of Babel, whom they sent to ask him about the wonder that was done in the land, Elohim left him in order to try him, to know all that was in his heart. And the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his kindness, see, they are written in the vision of Yeshayahu the prophet, son of Amoz, in the book of the sovereigns of Yehudah and Israel. So Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the upper tombs of the sons of David. And all Yehudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem esteemed him at his death, and Manasseh his son reigned in his place. 2 Chronicles chapter 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, according to the abominations of the Gentiles whom Yahuwah dispossessed from before the children of Israel. For again he rebuilt the high places which Hezekiah his father had broken down, and raised up altars for the Baals, and made Asherim, and bowed himself to all the hosts of the heavens, and served them. And he built altars in the house of Yahuwah, of which Yahuwah had said, In Jerusalem is my name forever. And he built altars for all the host of the heavens in the 2 courtyards of the house of Yahuwah. And he made his sons pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and practiced magic, and used divination and witchcraft, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of Yahuwah to provoke him. And he placed a carved image of the idol which he had made in the house of Elohim, of which Elohim had said to David and to Shalimah his son, In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I put my name forever. And no more shall I remove the foot of Israel from the soil which I have appointed for your fathers, only if they guard to do all that I have commanded them, according to all the Torah and the laws and the right rulings by the hand of Moshe. Thus Manasseh led Yehudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem astray, to do more evil than the Gentiles whom Yahuwah had destroyed before the children of Israel. And Yahuwah spoke to Manasseh and to his people, but they did not listen. Therefore Yahuwah brought upon them the commanders of the army of the sovereign of Ashur, who captured Manasseh with hooks, bound him with bronze shackles, and made him go to Babel. And when he was in distress, he sought the face of Yahuwah his Elohim, and humbled himself greatly before the Elohim of his fathers, and prayed to him. And he was moved by his entreaty, and heard his supplication, and brought him back to Jerusalem into his reign. And Manasseh knew that Yahuwah was Elohim, And after this he built a wall outside the city of David on the west of Gihon in the Wadi, and as far as the entrance of the fish gate, and it went round Ophel. And he made it exceedingly high. And he put army commanders in all the walled cities of Yehudah. And he removed the foreign mighty ones and the idol from the house of Yahuwah, and all the altars that he had built in the mount of the house of Yahuwah and in Jerusalem. And he threw them out of the city. And he built the altar of Yahuwah, and brought peace offerings and thank offerings on it, and ordered Yehudah to serve Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. But the people were still offering on the high places, though only to Yahuwah their Elohim. And the rest of the acts of Manasseh, his prayer to his Elohim, and the words of the seers, who spoke to him in the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. See, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel. And his prayer and his entreaty, and all his sin and his trespass, and the places where he built high places, and set up the Asherim and the carved images. Before he was humbled, see, they are written among the words of the seers. So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house, and his son Ammon reigned in his place. Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, as his father Manasseh had done. And Ammon offered to all the carved images which his father Manasseh had made, and served them. And he did not humble himself before Yahuwah, as his father Manasseh had humbled himself. For Ammon trespassed more and more. And his servants conspired against him, and killed him in his own house. But the people of the land smote all those who had conspired against sovereign Ammon. And the people of the land set up his son Yoshayahu to reign in his place. Second Chronicles, chapter 34. Yoshayahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, and walked in the ways of his father David, and did not turn aside right or left. And in the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, he began to seek the Elohim of his father David. And in the 12th year he began to cleanse Yehudah and Jerusalem from the high places, and the Asherim, and the carved images, and the molded images. And they broke down the altars of the Baals in his presence, and the sun pillars which were above them he cut down. And the Asherim, and the carved images, and the molded images he smashed, and ground them up, and strewed it on the graves of those who had offered to them. And he burned the bones of the priests on the altars, and cleansed Yehudah and Jerusalem. And in the cities of Manasseh and Ephraim and Shemron, as far as Naphtali, in their ruins all around. And he broke down the altars in the Asherim, and ground the carved images into dust, and cut down all the sun pillars throughout all the land of Israel, and returned to Jerusalem. And in the 18th year of his reign, when he had cleansed the land and the house, he sent Shaphan, son of Atsaliahu, and Maasayahu, the head of the city, and Yoha, son of Joahaz, the recorder, to repair the house of Yahuwah his Elohim. And they went to Hilkiyahu the high priest, and they gave the silver that was brought into the house of Elohim, which the Levites who kept the doors and gathered from the hand of Manasseh and Ephraim, and from all the remnant of Israel, and from all Yehudah and Benjamin, and which they had brought back to Jerusalem. And they gave it in the hand of the workmen, those appointed over the house of Yahuwah. And they gave it to the workmen who worked in the house of Yahuwah to repair and strengthen the house. And they gave it to the craftsmen and to the builders to buy huge stone and timber for couplings and for beams for the houses which the sovereigns of Yehudah had destroyed. And the men did the work trustworthily, and over them were appointed Johath and Obadiah, the Levites of the sons of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam of the sons of the Kehathites, to oversee, and of the Levites, all of whom were skilled in instruments of song, and over the burden bearers, and overseers of all who did work in any kind of service. And of the Levites were scribes and officers and gatekeepers. And when they brought out the silver that was brought into the house of Yahuwah, Hilkiah the priest found the book of the Torah of Yahuwah given by Moshe. Then Hilkiah responded and said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Yahuwah. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and Shaphan brought the book to the sovereign, and brought the sovereign word, saying, All that has been given into the hand of your servants they are doing. And they have poured out the silver that was found in the house of Yahuwah, and have given it into the hand of those appointed and the workmen. And Shaphan the scribe informed the sovereign, saying, Hilkiah the priest has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the sovereign. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the Torah, that he tore his garments. And the sovereign commanded Hilkiah, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, and Abdon, son of Makai, and Shaphan the scribe, and Azariah, a servant of the sovereign, saying, Go inquire of Yahuwah for me, and for him who is left in Israel and in Yehudah, concerning the words of the book that is found. For great is the wrath of Yahuwah that is poured out on us, because our fathers have not guarded the word of Yahuwah to do according to all that is written in this book. Then Hilkiah and those of the sovereign went to Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shulem, son of Tohath, son of Hasrah, keeper of the wardrobe, who was dwelling in Jerusalem in the second quarter. And they spoke to her about this, and she said to them, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, Say to the man who sent you to me, Thus said Yahuwah, See, I am bringing evil on this place and on its inhabitants, all the curses that are written in the book which they have read before the sovereign of Yehudah, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other mighty ones to provoke me with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath is poured out on this place and is not quenched. And to the sovereign of Yehudah, who sent you to inquire of Yahuwah, say to him, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, whose words you have heard, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before Elohim, when you heard his words against this place and against its inhabitants. And you humbled yourself before me, and you tore your garments and wept before me. I also have heard, declares Yahuwah. See, I am gathering you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, so that your eyes would not see all the evil that I am bringing on this place and its inhabitants. So they brought back word to the sovereign. And the sovereign sent and gathered all the elders of Yehudah and Jerusalem. And the sovereign went up to the house of Yahuwah with all the men of Yehudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the priests and the Levites, and all the people, both great and small. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the house of Yahuwah. And the sovereign stood in his place and made a covenant before Yahuwah to follow Yahuwah, and to guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws with all his heart and all his being, to do the words of the covenant that were written in this book. And he made stand all who were present in Jerusalem, and Benjamin and the inhabitants of Jerusalem did according to the covenant of Elohim, the Elohim of their fathers. And Yoshayahu removed all the abominations from all the lands that belonged to the children of Israel, and made all who were present in Israel diligently serve Yahuwah their Elohim. All his days they did not turn away from following Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. Second Chronicles chapter 35. And Yoshayahu performed a Passover to Yahuwah in Jerusalem, and they slaughtered the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their duties and strengthened them for the service of the house of Yahuwah, and said to the Levites who were teaching all Israel, who were set apart to Yahuwah, put the set-apart ark in the house which Solomon son of David, sovereign of Israel, built. It is no longer to be a burden on your shoulders. Now serve Yahuwah your Elohim and his people Israel, and prepare by the fathers' houses according to your divisions, by the writing of David, sovereign of Israel, and by the writing of Solomon his son. And stand in a set-apart place by the divisions of the fathers' houses of your brothers, the lay people, and the portion of the fathers' houses of the Levites. And slaughter the Passover, and set yourselves apart, and prepare for your brothers to do according to the word of Yahuwah by the hand of Moshe. And Yoshayahu gave the lay people lambs and young goats from the flock, all for Passover offerings, for everyone present, to the number of 30,000 and 3,000 cattle. These were from the sovereign's possessions. And his leaders contributed a voluntary offering to the people, to the priests, and to the Levites. Hilkiah and Zechariah, and Yahiel, leaders of the house of Elohim, gave to the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 and 300 cattle. And Conaniahu, his brother Shemayahu, and Nathaniel, and Hashabayahu, and Yael, and Jozabad, chiefs of the Levites, gave to the Levites for Passover offerings 5,500 cattle. And the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their places, and the Levites in their divisions, according to the command of the sovereign. And they slaughtered the Passover, and the priests sprinkled out of their hands while the Levites were skinning. And they removed the burnt offerings to give them to the divisions of the fathers' houses of the lay people to bring to Yahuwah, as it is written in the book of Moshe, and the same with the cattle. So they roasted the Passover offerings with fire, according to the right ruling, and they boiled the set-apart offerings in pots and in cauldrons, and in bowls, and brought them speedily to all the lay people. And afterward they prepared for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the sons of Aaron, were offering burnt offering and fat unto night. So the Levites prepared for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aaron. And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their places according to the command of David. And Asaph and Heman and Jeduthun, the seer of the sovereign, and the gatekeepers at each gate did not have to leave their position, because their brothers the Levites prepared for them. And all the service of Yahuwah was prepared that day, to perform the Passover and to offer burnt offerings on the altar of Yahuwah, according to the command of sovereign Yoshayahu. And the children of Israel who were present performed the Passover at that time, and the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days. There had not been a Passover performed in Israel like it since the days of Shemuel the prophet, and none of the sovereigns of Israel had performed such a Passover as Yoshayahu performed with the priests and the Levites, and all Yehudah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Yoshayahu, this Passover was performed. After all this, when Yoshayahu had prepared the house, Necho, sovereign of Mizraim, came up to fight against Carchemish by the Euphrates. And Yoshayahu went out against him. And he sent messengers to him, saying, What have I to do with you, sovereign of Yehudah? I am not coming against you this day, but against the house with which I am fighting. For Elohim commanded me to make haste. Leave Elohim alone, who is with me, lest he destroy you. However, Yoshayahu would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself to fight against him, and did not listen to the words of Necho from the mouth of Elohim, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at sovereign Yoshayahu, and the sovereign said to his servants, Take me away, for I am severely wounded. And his servants took him out of that chariot and put him in the second chariot that he had. And they brought him to Jerusalem. And he died and was buried in one of the tombs of his fathers. And all Yehudah and Jerusalem were mourning for Yoshayahu. And Jeremiah lamented for Yoshayahu. And to this day all the singing men and the singing women speak of Yoshayahu in their lamentations, and made it a law in Israel. And see, they are written in the laments. And the rest of the acts of Yoshayahu and his kindness, according to what was written in the Torah of Yahuwah, and his acts from the first to the last, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel and Yehudah. Second Chronicles, chapter 36. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, son of Yoshayahu, and set him up to reign in his father's place in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And the sovereign of Mizraim turned him aside in Jerusalem, and imposed on the land a levy of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the sovereign of Mizraim made his brother Eliakim sovereign over Yehudah and Jerusalem, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took Jehoahaz his brother and brought him to Mizraim. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah his Elohim. Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came up against him and bound him in bronze shackles to take him away to Babel. And Nebuchadnezzar brought some of the utensils from the house of Yahuwah to Babel and put them in his hekel at Babel. And the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, the abominations which he did, and what was found against him, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel and Yehudah. Then Jehoiakim his son reigned in his place. And Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months and 10 days, and he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah. And at the turn of the year, sovereign Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babel with the valuable utensils from the house of Yahuwah, and made Sidkiyahu, Jehoiakim's brother, sovereign over Yehudah and Jerusalem. Sidkiyahu was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah his Elohim. He did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet, who spoke from the mouth of Yahuwah. And he also rebelled against sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by Elohim. But he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart against turning to Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel. Also all the heads of the priests and the people trespassed more and more, according to all the abominations of the Gentiles, and they defiled the house of Yahuwah, which he had set apart in Jerusalem. And Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers sent to them by his messengers, rising up early and sending them, for he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they were mocking the messengers of Elohim, and despising his words, and scoffing at his prophets, until the wrath of Yahuwah rose against his people, until there was no healing. Therefore he brought against them the sovereign of the Chaldeans, and he slew their young men with the sword in the house of their set-apart place, and had no compassion on young man or maidens, on the aged or the weak. He gave all into his hand, and all the utensils from the house of Elohim, great and small, and the treasures of the house of Yahuwah, and the treasures of the sovereign and of his leaders, all these he brought to Babel. And they burned the house of Elohim, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem, and burned all its palaces with fire, and destroyed all its valuable utensils. And those who escaped from the sword he exiled to Babel, where they became servants to him and his sons until the reign of Persia, in order to fill the word of Yahuwah by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths. As long as she lay waste, she kept Sabbath, until 70 years were completed. And in the first year of Koresh, sovereign of Persia, in order to accomplish the word of Yahuwah by the mouth of Yeremiah, Yahuwah stirred up the spirit of Koresh, sovereign of Persia, so that he called out in all his reign, and also put it in writing, saying, Thus said Koresh, sovereign of Persia, Yahuwah Elohim of the heavens has given me all the reins of the earth, and he has commanded me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Yehuda. Whoever is among you of all his people, Yahuwah, his Elohim, be with him, and let him go up.